Hello, everyone, and welcome back to this episode of In Lay Terms. I'm your host, Payman Ascari, and we have back with us our good friend, TheRemanded, Mr. Remanded. How are you?
Good, good. Finally got your aspirin, so we're off.
Yeah, I might have to cut the stream short to go get something a little stronger.
Politics in Canada today, you need something strong.
Yeah, I guess the joke, if you guys didn't get it, I was doing a live stream before this one with Alan Abbott. Halfway through, my tooth started acting up. But that's neither here nor there. Remanded, you're doing some good stuff as always with your pursuit of election integrity. Give us an update.
Yeah, so we filed a formal complaint back in mid October. I've been filing freedom of information requests from August till yesterday. I sent my fifth one in. And it's just kind of been playing the waiting game, waiting for responses, seeing how they're going to go at it, and it's funny, like when you start playing this game of I guess politics or seeking accountability or answers, it really opens your eyes to how those in power play that game, whether they deflect or they don't answer or they're evasive. It's wild to go through the motions. So we had a response to our formal complaint, by Elections BC. They replied, and then legal counsel got involved, which was interesting because that was the first time that had happened. And then the CEO requested immunity through his Volume 3 report, and that's from the CEO of Elections BC.
Sorry, requested immunity from the government or from who?
From the Legislative Assembly. So this is a recommendation within his Volume 3 report, that the CEO and election officials be granted immunity from lawsuits, essentially accountability, and it's hard to
Did
not
the
see
assembly
that.
go for that?
Well, right now, I think that the committee, the Democratic and Electoral Reform Committee, have until November 26th, I believe it is, to publish their deliberations from the work that they've been doing since June, I think it was. And so they'll be taking into consideration these recommendations, and I'm not entirely sure if it gets approved by this committee outright or whether or not the recommendations have to be sent to the Legislative Assembly for them to vote on and put in and enact them. I think that would make sense. I should get clarification on that. But we did see things like another committee, I believe, choose the new CEO for Elections BC for our provincial elections here. So
This committee, how many people who's in it? Is it mostly NDP, BC NDP?
It is. The majority is our BC NDP. I saw that they did have a change between phase one, which was electoral reform, and then phase two, which is in May of 2026, reviewing the 2024 BC election. So that there's 9 on the committee. I think there's 11 now, but I'll just say that there's 9. Majority BC NDP. There's 1 Green. Dallas Brody was added to it from 1 BC, and there's 2 BC Conservatives. So You've got 4 and then 5. Yeah, 4 that are not BCNDP essentially.
What's your sense of this committee? Is it like, do they have integrity? Can they be trusted? Are they good people, or are they horribly corrupt?
Well, I had kind of written them off a couple weeks ago because through my interactions with the admin two committees, um, I was like, what's the point in people emailing or phoning in if we can't get confirmation that our concerns will be brought up? We got replies stating that they received our complaints, specifically regarding to stop the destruction of elections material until the phase 2 has, deliberated, because it just makes sense. Like
Sorry.
what if they
One,
wanted to investigate,
um, I had my usual panic attack because StreamYard says that we're not live, but I think we are live.
Yeah, I mean, I do see it on X.
StreamYard is telling me I should go live. Is anyone in the audience? Just tell me if you can hear us. Um, I see it on X. We're live. I even see myself freaking out on X with
Yeah.
that delay. Okay. All right. Sorry about that. Never mind. Please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah. So I after that interaction, very kind lady. For anybody that hasn't phoned in to the committee admin lady, Emily, she she is such a she is such a nice person. Every time I call in, and I look forward to to just her. She's just so polite. This is kind of it's a mini segue, but it's just a refresher. There's no judgment or anything. She answers all the questions that you have. Very knowledgeable of the inner workings of committees and where to find information. That's besides the point. But so I did this little initiative stating that, through this spawned from one of my FOIs, one of my freedom of information requests, where I wanted, I wanted the election material to not be destroyed, and that we wanted copies, of the tabulator tapes and ballot counts, whatever else. And they stated, you've got 1 business day to reply. It's going to cost you $6,300, and you know, eh, that's rather stressful to deal with. I had to spend hours formulating a response. Luckily, AI has helped level the playing field, so that you don't need like an expert or a lawyer to really draft these things up. And then you got to fact check it, whatever, make sure things are what you want to be inputted as a response. And then they attempted to close the file. They're just like, yeah, well, you're out of time. We're closing the file. And we're just like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Like, wait, like, no, like there's a due process here. We can kick these things up to the Information Privacy Commissioner to weigh in and give a determination as to what's supposed to happen here. Because your request is just like ridiculous. You're requesting $6,300 when taxpayers have spent $80+ million, on an election, and you deleted the digital data, and so now we have to recreate that and make copies of the physical the physical evidence of or results of the election. And so we had to keep fighting back and forth with that. And it was just wild. And I thought that we were gonna lose that, but you know, you are entitled to a review by the commission. You have 30 days. So that's under review. Um, and we filed that through an MLA, which was vastly different from filing your own. And so these are the things that are kind of a red flag. I filed one of mine. I filed a request to Voter Services at Elections BC. They said, "Oh, you need to talk to Correspondent Services." So they kicked it up to Correspondent Services. Correspondent Services said, "Oh, you have to file a Freedom of Information request through Privacy Services." And so I had to file a Freedom of Information request through the privacy officer at Elections BC. And, you know, that took time, you know, 5 days to respond. And then they say you have 30 business days. I thought it was 30 days. No, it's 30 business days. And so 30 business days is actually 48 days. And they waited till basically the last hour to respond to my request. And they requested, I think, $120 and a 30-day extension. And I'm just like, they waited till the last hour of the final day to reply. Yet when I go through an MLA, it gets within 24-hour response. So it just goes to show how you need to leverage how you proceed with things in order to get responses in a timely manner. But even then, they still delay. So after those interactions, and I saw what was going on with, you know, them attempting to close the one of the files regarding election material, I was just like, okay, you know what, everybody, email, phone, put in your complaints to this committee, you know, to try and stop the destruction of election material. So they had a meeting that was on camera, so it's not privy to the public's not privy to what goes on in that meeting. It's all behind closed doors. The one following that, November 7th, I think at like the 45 or 47-minute mark after Elections BC did their presentation to the committee, Ward Stammer, who's the deputy, I think the deputy chair, so like not chair, but the deputy chair to the committee, he basically stated, and it was wild. I was hooting and hollering, and my kids were like, "Dad, what are you yelling about?" And I'm just like, "Are you listening to this?" And obviously, they don't have a clue what's going on. Um, and I posted some things in some DM groups, and it's just, this is wild. He had stated that because of our reaching out, you know, the public actually responding to my posts, what I was asking them to, you know, think about doing. Very rational, just stop the election material, you know, from being destroyed, you know, before they even review the election. And he said that, you know, due to public outreach or, you know, responses that we've been getting, we got the mandate wrong. We should have started with the election first. And I was just like, oh man, there's just like a bit of closure because it makes
Sorry,
sense.
what does that mean? We got the mandate. We should have started with the election first. How did they
Yeah.
start?
So in May or June, they did phase one. So this committee has a mandate of two phases. One, electoral reform. That's phase one. Phase two, review the 2024 election. Those are the two mandates that this committee has.
Okay.
And so the problem with how they proceeded, and to his comments, phase two is a year and a half after the election. You know, all election materials destroyed. Everything's gone. So even if you wanted to really review or investigate or actually have questions answered or dig into things, if there was issues, you wouldn't be able to. You would have nothing to reference, you know, in terms of election material. And so when he stated that they got the mandate wrong, it should have been reversed. Because how can you do electoral reform if you don't understand how the election that just occurred was administered?
This
Like, it
is
just doesn't make any sense.
so this is like if there's a data breach at the CIA and they propose changes before they investigate how the data breach happened. Is that accurate?
Yeah, yeah. Like it's just like, and I'm banging my head. Like I can't I you know I mean, from my point of view, I mean, it's criminal. It's like, how do you're only creating more you're disenfranchising the public in the voting electoral system, having done it this way. It's hard to not speculate that it was done on purpose. But we don't want to get conspiratorial, because then you called names and stuff. So after he had mentioned that, he basically went and talked about the election material, and the CEO, Anton Bogman, stated, well, it's part of our, nothing's been deleted yet. We've got a election material destruction program set in, and things are going to happen according to the Elections Act, legislation. And it's just like, it's so annoying, because just because the Elections Act states something, or there's legislation in place, it's like you have to obey it, to the letter, as if there were issues here or there, or requests that came in. It's You can make the decision to wait. Like why wouldn't you have a case before the Supreme Court of BC? Why wouldn't you just wait, show a little bit of integrity, prove to the public that you're doing your due diligence? And so Ward Stammer says, well, we shouldn't be doing that. I suggest that we don't destroy any election material until we've gotten to our mandate, which is to review the 2024 BC election. And so this is why I tell people to try to be nonpartisan on things like the electoral system, because by surprise, Rob Botterill, BC Green MLA, stated that as well. He was just like, I agree with my counterpart that we should not be destroying any election material. Boom, win. Nonpartisan win there. And that is, I mean, that's huge, because it does a variety of things. It brings hope that the system, regardless if you think the system can't work, everything's rigged, yada yada yada. This proves that if you can get enough voices together, you can be heard, at a certain level. And I think that's very hopeful to, what's happening in BC and across Canada. So they won't be deleting election material, and that'll help us figure out, what we're doing on our end. But I didn't hear any mention or discussion regarding the request for immunity. And when we lens in the CEO of Elections BC May 27th report, he states in there that yes, there were errors, but at the end of the day, as the CEO of Elections BC, I take full accountability. Great statement. That's great. Good. We want you to take full accountability. 5 months later, he recommends immunity.
What's usually when you want immunity, you give something back, like you're flipping on one of your bosses. What is he giving in return?
Nothing. Like there's nothing. I mean he had his reasoning was due to an increase in litigious lawsuits in the previous years. And I went and searched. It's like, I don't know what he's talking about. Like that's an in fact that's an that's a non-factual statement. There hasn't been any malicious, the term he used in that little paragraph. There's been no malicious lawsuits to justify this line of reasoning to be granted immunity. And just I obviously I don't know whether or not this is in retaliation. Maybe that's not the right word, but as a response to our work. But I can't help to think that it does, with all of our work through the FOIAs and in the formal complaint, and we got the Gibson Go up there. So I can only see that he's worried.
It seems like it's not the sort of situation where you ask for immunity. And when you ask for immunity, you're admitting that you did something wrong, and then you give something in return. So this guy did something wrong, and he doesn't want any responsibility for it. Like you said, he goes, I take full accountability, but I don't want to be responsible.
I mean, it's wild. And it's just like, I tell people, look at the turn of events. We had thousands of errors on the final day of counting. We had the lieutenant governor come out and state, and it's still up there. Like, these are all things that can be easily referenced and still are publicly available, that she had been given assurances from Elections BC that the final results are final. Everything's good to go. Talk to David Ebb, yada yada. And then and you can still see my post below hers saying, what are you talking about? There's 3,464 votes not accounted for in this election. And look what stemmed from that. An investigation occurred. A ballot box was found, but it wasn't lost. It was always there, and over 2,500 omitted or lost or misplaced vote counts. 11 tabulator tapes weren't counted. They were omitted. Which equals to like 748 votes. It's just like.
Before you proceed, Remanded, earlier you said, they want to the letter of the law, they have to destroy the ballots on this day. I'm guessing that to the letter of the law, they a lot of times they ignored the law. Like, you can't just destroy evidence from the tabulator machines, correct or not?
Yeah, like that is, and that's what AI fights with, like when I input all of the information, the documents, the whatever else, because I can't talk about elections with people 24/7. It's kind of a niche topic to some degree. People are past it, and that's alarming, because it's so many errors, and this is multiplied or compounded by his May 27th report. If anybody hasn't read that thing, like, man, go through it. Go to page 88. It's 93 pages. Go to page 88 and just read the 41 orders of errors, lack of procedure, mistakes. 41, and it doesn't include the violation that he admitted before the Supreme Court of BC. Like, that's, I have a hard time.
What was the violation he admitted?
Section 109, they basically an unofficial elections officer helping people in need at a lodge, there's like 22 people that voted. One was rejected, 21 votes that were counted from that lodge by an unofficial elections officer. That was screened and approved by a team of 3 that were screening mail-in ballot group orders. So it's just like, and it's great that came out through the court, because a lot of the times you have nothing to cite as precedents, like where it's irrefutable. And so when we see the election, when we see Elections BC come out in the new year 2025 and state, we're not going to be investigating this further, we're going to abdicate to the court. Like, how is that allowed? You didn't allow that candidate in the Surrey Guildford riding. You didn't allow his judicial review under the 30-day deadline to proceed. You stipulated a deadline and you struck it down. So he had to go the formal complaint review route. They filed a police report, and then they got to a judicial review for that riding. The RCMP media spokesperson comes out and states, do not file any complaints regarding the BC election with the RCMP. File that to Elections BC. But Elections BC is now stating that they're not going to investigate issues or violations that they have all the information for. It's so frustrating.
I was going to bring, there's a gentleman in the audience, Kirk Reese, you might know him.
Yeah.
I've interviewed him a couple of times, and his story is sort of similar to yours. His is more extreme. Every political party he went to, every agency, the ombudsperson, the military, law enforcement, they all said, this is not our responsibility. We don't have jurisdiction. Mm-hmm. And they start passing him around until he couldn't get justice. This is a very minor version. It's almost clearer with you. Technically, I guess no crime has been committed, so you can't go to RCMP. But the body that's responsible for investigating is not really investigating or slow walking the investigation.
Yeah, well, the problem is that they have to investigate themselves. Like, I went to my local MP's office and I asked them, can I follow any of this up with you? It's like, well, no, we don't get involved in provincial issues. You have to go through MLA. So I was like, okay, but if all the MLAs are, ignoring you, or they cite, we only serve our constituents, or your 300-page formatted, factually based and reference report is too long for MLAs to read. What do you do? And so it's crazy that we got to the point that Elections BC, like the CEO, had to come out and actually admit that there was a violation, Section 109, regarding that lodge, that issue, and it just goes, and that violation was not included in the 41 orders in his May report. Why was that not included? Why was that not reviewed? Why isn't that followed up with? And then it begs the question, how many more locations, how many more group orders were approved or passed in violation of the Elections Act? And because we're only honing in on this one specific lodge, this one location in this one riding, to which Elections BC deems the provincial election to be not one of itself, singular. It's actually 93 separate elections. So they then separate each riding as its own election from the entirety of the election itself. That's very interesting, because when we look at how the voter system has worked, it's an out of district vote anywhere template. Why is it an issue? Well, they can destroy all the evidence except for in that one riding, but that one riding is connected to wherever votes had come in from other districts. And so you can make the case that they should not delete election material because votes had come in from other ridings, other district electoral offices within the province. But you have to make that argument. The interesting thing, and I've posted it many times, I think it's page 55 or 65 in that May 27th report, is that they've basically admitted that in the future we will make sure that we have checks and balances regarding how we count and make sure that all the ballots are in and that they balance out. That basically means that they didn't make sure that every vote, every ballot box, every out of district ballot was accounted for, and that's evident through all of the errors, the orders that were passed by the CEO, and that they deleted the digital data. That is basically step 2 of 4 steps to how votes are counted. You have the physical ballot, you have the raw data from the tabulator, and because now the tabulators are basically replacing human count, you have tabulator tapes, step 3, and then they create a ballot account, which is step 4. And we are only entitled to steps 3 and 4. We're not entitled to view physical ballots. We are not entitled to the digital data from the tabulators like we see in the States. We are only entitled to see what was interpreted by the tabulators via the tabulator tape and ballot accounts. And people should be upset about that, because where does the scrutinizer come into play here? And so we'll kind of segue for a moment to the federal election. This is very important. When we look at Terrebonne, I think it was Terrebonne riding, in its recount, there was a liberal candidate scrutinizer that had taken a notepad and made notes of about 20 ballots. People really got to listen to this. This is why this is important, that we stay with the paper ballot system in its entirety across Canada in all elections. This scrutineer made notes of about 20 ballots that were rejected. He then copied what he saw on ballots, like templated ballots. That writing wasn't within the threshold of a recount. And I think the threshold for federal is 1 in 1,000. And so it was off by, I think, 20 or 30 votes or so to be for it to be have a recount approved. He brought his notes and what he saw on these rejected ballots to a judge, and the judge then deemed that there should be a recount. That's crazy. That's showing that this role of election integrity and consequently accountability is seen to have worked. And I think they won that riding. I know I might mix the bunch up, but all of them had added votes.
What did he, out of curiosity, what did he see?
He saw ballots that had markings on it. I think some of them were posted, like there was a mark here or there on the page or something where the intent of the elector or the voter was clear, but it was rejected on the terms that there were other markings on the page that then deemed that ballot to be rejected. So with these tabulators and whatever else, like nobody can know what the tabulator is seeing, what it's recording, what the digital optical or image is created if you delete them. And second, you don't allow for the public to review that. And what you see in other counties in the states is that these are publicly available on government websites in certain states. So that's kind of part of election integrity, because there's you're only entitled to inspect your writings, tabulator tape, and ballot accounts. You can't go outside your writing. So there's a quite a bit of an effort that you would have to go through to actually inspect or review other writings, and even then you don't get to see the ballots, you don't get to see the digital data.
Remanded, as you're talking, I'm coming to this belief that the difference between Canada and America is like bottom up. The power lies within the governed, whereas Canada, it's kind of like top down. You trust the institutions and you look to them. And it seems like this election system is designed. It would work if we had faith in government, but we're basically saying, government should have this responsibility, not the people.
Yeah, I mean it's a glaring, especially now that like I've gone through this process. The main thing is just that, there are no generalized, there are no generalized, maybe that's not the right word, like forms to which the public can have oversight over elections in Canada. We're just not entitled to it. It's and look at the process to which to get the information. You have to go through, roadblocks. I had, through the privacy officer, through those documents, they basically said, they've admitted they deleted it. So they've admitted the violation 149, that they didn't retain all election material. And when we look to other jurisdictions like Alberta did. I got confirmation from Elections Alberta that they retained all their election material, even the cast vote record, which, for those that don't know what CVR is, or cast vote record, that's the digital data from the tabulators, and they retained it for 6 months. Theirs is 6 months, ours is 1 year. Federal, I think, is 7 years. So, and when you think about that, and the fact that they deleted it, and then they, in this May 27th report, again, he states recommendations for the future. We will make it so that future elections are fully automated, uploaded results. Fully automated, uploadable results. So what does that mean for the scrutineer? That role of election integrity. There's these, and it's hard. Like, you can go back to I've watched a couple recommendations of documentaries, and there was this whole thing with Diebold back in 2006, and they did the count right in front of video, recorded of the count, and memory cards, and how the votes were changed. And we saw the same thing in another documentary via, I think, Let My People Go. In the first 40 minutes, it's if you're triggered by American politics and stuff, you just kind of like skip ahead and get to where they, go through the issues or concerns. And I think I posted, it's like a 2-minute video where it basically shows the Dominion voting system I think it's called tally results program that they use. They show they input and show 7 ballots, how they were marked, and how they can be adjudicated within the uh, Dominion software, whatever program. They do it right in front of you, but I don't really want to reference that stuff a lot because it's got the names Trump and Biden. And so people think that, they'll just write you off. So I try not to cite American politics as much as possible, but you will never get a hold of one of these tabulators and do these tests. I mean, specifically now that the website, that a lot of the references that I have to the Dominion voting system are not accessible because, and this should piss people off on the left, I would assume, because Liberty Vote acquired Dominion voting systems. So now, luckily I saved pages and I have receipts for the program that should have been used with these tabulators. The fact that they do have Wi-Fi capabilities stated right on their website, but you can't find those now because Liberty Vote has taken over. And what does that mean for Canadian elections? That American company has acquired electronic voting, essentially ownership of electronic voting in Canada. I mean, what does that mean? Does that upset people? Does that not upset people? I don't know. I mean, why can't we just do paper ballots? I mean, crying out loud, we have an entire wood industry up here. We just like it creates jobs. It creates it's just so basic. Why would we need to spend millions and millions of dollars on vendors and electronic voting because we're too lazy to freaking count paper ballots? It just seems so backwards. And even if you can reference the Supreme Court of the Philippines back in 2010, 2011. They deemed the 80 or 81,000 whatever tabulators, the PCOS tabulators, which is the same type model that that Dominion voting systems used, that they were shown to be able to be hacked and whatever else. I try not
I'd
to
like
dip
to
into.
I'd like to
Yeah,
point out that the Obama administration, they turned on the Philippines, and recently the Philippines, the president of that time, they just turned the guy over to the international court.
yeah. It's such a deep, and I don't really like bringing that stuff up, but I mean it's hard to find these references or like court documents that kind of supports you, and you end up going kind of down a slippery slope of potential conspiracy theories. So I try not to dip into it much, and I try to reference court documents as much as possible where you can find them.
No, that's
Uh,
smart. So let me
yeah,
bring it back then. You're right.
sure.
I don't want to derail your court case. Um, One thing you mentioned, that you said they police themselves, and we kind of identified where they selectively agree to the Elections Act. I'm thinking about something like setback on your house. So if the setback on your house is like 10 feet and you build to within 5 feet of the road, they're going to come in and they'll hit you with a penalty. There's probably somewhere in some act somewhere where it says if the person violates the setback, you can punish them up to X amount of $1,000.
Yes.
I'm guessing that's not in the Elections Act. It's assumed that nothing will go wrong, and if something does go wrong, there's no mechanism for holding these people accountable.
Well, there kind of is. Excuse me. I believe I if I don't get the sorry, if I don't get the sections, if I get them wrong, there's 256, 257, 250. I think it's 255 to 258. Basically, sets out wrongdoing, and I can't remember if it's 258 or 260 of the Elections Act. That is basically subversion of an election by an official, and within that, that gives precedent to not really go after, but find accountability to the decisions of the CEO or elections officials. And so within that, if you work in within that framework, deleting deleting digital data election is an election material. So that's a violation of section 149, which then proceeds to, I think, 258, and then cites, I think, 260. I would have to go through them again. And because then it then shows the penalties. So if you violate section 149, that talks about subversion of election by the election official, which is 258, and then from that you see the penalties that CEO or election official or whoever subverted election results or materials is then subject to these penalties, which I think is up to $20,000, 2 years in imprisonment, or you can't take a government position or whatnot for 7 years. So
That's
it
good.
is
So it's
there.
actually in there.
It's in there, but this is the problem with how they've responded to our formal complaint under Section 277. And this is why I had to change the initiative of filing a lawsuit. Filing a lawsuit outright is incredibly risky financially and everything else. This form actually shows a judge that you've worked within the system. Now, the problem with the response from Elections BC is that they've cited as a reason to turn down our complaint, in that it doesn't meet the threshold of a formal complaint, is because the deadlines have passed, citing Section 150. What is Section 150? Section 150 is an application to the court. We have not made an application to the court. So they are attempting to, well, one, they didn't answer any of the facts that we had published in there. They said that we have a misunderstanding of how the voting system works. Excuse me? Like, you literally have 1,000 unallocated votes on your website right now, and anybody can see that. Go to the news section on electionsbc.ca, scroll down to May 27th, and you'll see the initial count, the final count. Add those two numbers up, and scroll down a little bit where he talks about, I'm going to take full accountability, and that number being 1,000 votes more than what they stated, which is a reference of the April 17th statement of vote, which is basically the totals of results. So they didn't answer any of our questions. They said, we misunderstand how the voting system works. You didn't cite any contraventions that we deemed to be validity, even though we did. And that we are citing Section 150 as a reason that we are not accepting your formal complaint, even though Section 150, as I said, is an application to court. We have not made an application to court. This is Section 277 of filing a formal complaint. And so it's this circular, evasive tactic, which they don't have to do. Like, I don't know why they would respond like that. But when you lens in the fact that they've requested immunity and they've given a bunch of non-answers and falsely referenced sections of the Elections Act that do not apply, it's very hard to continue to be a good faith citizen in response, because you know that they're lying. And the same thing happened in the Freedom of Information request. You waited to the last hour. You attempted to close the file without due process via the commission. You've requested an exuberant amount of money to cover fees, cover hours spent to recreate data that was deleted in violation of Section 149. And you're trying to do away with accountability. And I get it. We spend over 1,000 hours on this stuff. This is part of my daily life now. People may not get it. Hopefully they'll tune into it or understand at least a piece of it. And so this is where we kind of run into when I put all the documents into AI and I ask, what is rigged? What is fraud? What is cheating? What do those terms really mean? And how do you get to that threshold that you can actually call these things that in a factual based manner? So here's kind of the thing. It states, after I put in all the documents, all that stuff, it's like, combined with the court documents you showed earlier, paragraph 89 about unauthorized election officials, this demonstrates a deliberate non-compliance with statutory requirements, destruction of evidence, CVRs, obstruction of the Section 277 complaint process, and a misrepresentation of legal requirements. So it then states as a question, what category does this fall under? This electoral fraud and obstruction of justice, knowing violations of statutory requirements, sections 109, 149, destruction of election records required for verification, systematic evasion of the complaint process designed to ensure accountability, and a misrepresentation of legal obligations to avoid investigation. And that states this goes far beyond irregularities. It's systemic, deliberate, and designed to prevent accountability. And it says next steps. Have you considered filing a judicial review of Elections BC refusal to investigate, or filing a complaint with the BC Ombudsman? Isn't going to do anything. They have no.
I find the
Yeah.
ombudsman is either completely useless, or they'll take you to the very last step, and then they'll be like, "Oh, we forgot to dot an I." Sorry.
Well, they don't have any powers, right? Like it's not. There's nothing legally binding. It's just another paper to the pile, to which you can reference things to. But it's just like, I just found it that putting all these things in here, because I've been reluctant to call the election fraud, cheating, or rigged, because it's low resolution, because you kind of need facts and stuff to really base things out in order to push the conversation and have the dialogue with as many people as possible. But the fact that it came to the conclusion that you need to file a judicial review, came to the conclusion back in June, and that's kind of like what we've been doing, but it just sucks that it takes money. They were given a $94+ million budget. For those that don't know, that's 2.5 times more than the average fiscal year election that we had. 2020 was a special case with COVID. I think that was about 54 million. And I think we're at 84 million in this election, mainly due to, I would assume, the cost of vendors, leasing equipment, all that stuff, but we need to charge someone $6,300 for a Freedom of Information request because we deleted material. I just find it so annoying.
This is
but if you talk,
it goes back to the question I asked. You kind of answered it. There are stipulates that you can hold the CEO accountable, but I'm guessing that's not happening because they're self-policing.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. The self-policing. The voter services, correspondence services, privacy services, Elections BC, complaint department, and investigations at Elections BC. It's everything is in-house. The interagency they created with the CSIS, RCMP, Elections BC, whatever, cyber people, and the Canadian Cyber Center, formed this interagency to basically monitor everything. And I'll reference again the electoral advisory committee of March 2024, where they asked the question regarding foreign interference or influence will the Legislative Assembly or MLAs be given? Will they be entitled or be given the reports of any foreign influence or interference? And then basically said no. MLAs, elected representatives, are not entitled to it. So it's, I mean, how do you believe in a system with one, no public oversight, and two, no elected represented oversight? That's just that's crazy for them to just say no. We'll pick out what we think you might need to see, and that's the extent of it. And I'll kind of I guess reference that with a conversation, off the record conversation I had with someone high up. That led to one of the Freedom of Information requests, and the correspondence services at Elections BC stated, you're not entitled to this information. You're not entitled to the protocols used by this, neutral body of the government. And your question regarding whether or not we would let the MLAs of this committee know the information that you, or the questions you've asked regarding the equipment and component changes, we will only come forward with that information if we were demanded by the committee. And so they won't even come forth with information that may be deemed to be a concern unless asked. That's a problem. And this is why I CC'd in, or BCC'd in, all of the members of that committee, because I needed them to see this interaction. If the members on that committee do not know what questions to ask, then the electoral agency, they're not going to come forward and be forthcoming with information that they have that may be a concern to the MLAs on that committee or the public. And I've had so many revelations through this process to how the system works. And you wonder why voter participation is down, or people are disfranchised with the system. It's because of shit like this. Like, it's very frustrating to see them act this way.
Remanded, I know that you're very careful with your words. I get that. There's you have a court case and you want to make sure everything's factual. I'm just going to share my opinion from everything I've learned in the last 5 years. The people in these bureaucracies, whether they're criminal, whether they're corrupt, or whether they're incompetent, their concern is in covering their own ass. They don't give a damn about the system. They don't really care about due process. So for them stalling you and saying, we won't answer this, it's a criminal liability issue for them. I think they realize that they've messed up. Again, malice, incompetence. And they're like, who's this loser Remanded? We're not giving him anything.
Yeah. I mean, I think that I can't find a different way to really see it any other, especially with the immunity play. It's just that word will be forever ingrained through his statement. It's so crazy. Yeah. I had something else there, but I can't think of it.
One more godless woman hits us with a pun. They act that way because they write their own act. It's correct. It's accurate.
Yeah. I mean, I was looking up I was looking through the role of the scrutineer. I think it's section 276. And to some degree, the way that they've rewritten the legislation, it actually it actually violates that role because the scrutineer cannot see the ballot. You mark it, you put it in the envelope, and then it just gets inserted into the tabulator. So the scrutineer actually doesn't have the ability to scrutinize that vote count, and unless there's a recount, and that's crazy. And that should be argued. What's even more annoying is the fact that, and I really want people to think about this. Think about advanced voting. Think about advanced voting. Now, advanced voting, I think that was from the 9th. I have so many numbers in my head. From the 9th to the 15th or 16th, I think it was. So everyone, I think about a million people had put their ballot through the advanced voting option. That means that total existed digitally before election night. 1 million people who voted in this province, those results existed before election night.
Are you saying that somebody might have been able to look at them and predict the outcome?
I mean, that's definitely a concern, like how would you, I mean, and the fact that they deleted the digital data, in a paper ballot system, hand counted, that vote result does not exist. But through this avenue, it does exist. And so if anybody wanted to know, you could change your you could change your method of getting out the vote within those remaining 3 days before election night. You could target specific neighborhoods or whatever else. I mean, it's a bit of a theory, but it's one that we should think about. I mean, and then to the fact that we're going to move to an uploadable results system. I mean, that just compounds the fact that there is a vote count result before election night.
This is like they're moving towards AI. Like, don't even bother having elections. Everything's electronic.
I think I've heard that once or twice. I don't know if I should dabble into it, but it's just I haven't really thought about it. But the fact that, I mean, the fact that you can vote for a month, like, how many people are aware of that?
Like it should be on one day. I just look at it this way: like you have a certain amount of money to spend on security, and security just means securing the ballot boxes. And if you do it all, if you spend all that money on one day, you have the tightest security. If you spend it on 30 days, you have less security. Unless you want to spend 30 times more money, like everything should be on one day.
Yeah. I mean, it totally makes sense. And the problem with that is you're going to remove all of the convenience. And we've become a society at large globally about convenience. So, we had a petition we've held off putting before the Legislative Assembly. We have an MLA who will bring that forth for us. Whether or not to request that, because it will most likely be struck down. We're not. This isn't Alberta. We don't have. We didn't have what they did, where they basically got rid of them. Bill, I think it was Bill 20. They got rid of them for their province. You see, people whining in the city elections, municipal elections that they just had, that Boat County is going to take X amount of time, blah blah blah. But When we think about one thing that they brought up through phase one of this committee, through electoral reform, it's like they were oblivious to why there's low participation. Let's just throw more money about it. Let's just do more outreach. Well, let's lens this in a little bit. 2017, there were nearly 32,000 people that had worked in the election. 2024, it was about 15,000. Participation within our electoral system dropped in half because we opted to replace what would be actually your biggest advocate for trusting elections, those who worked the election, those who counted each ballot. Those are your biggest advocates towards electoral integrity. And when you reduce that staffing by 50%, and you give all this money to vendors and whatever else, I mean, that's part of your problem right there. But we were denied the ability to do oral presentations within phase one, which was unfortunate. So we couldn't bring these concerns up. But it's like, are people aware that there is no real staffing shortage? Over 75,000 people, over 75,000 people applied to work for the BC election, and we hired 1/5 because of new efficiencies that we paid via vendors to administer our elections here in BC. The answers are right in front of you. When we think about federal election and we lens that with Germany's election, I dabbled in to kind of learn a little bit about their system. I think they have like 3 people in every poll station or whatever, guarding, the ballot box, or scrutinizing, the ballot count and whatever else. Like, their civic involvement is through the charts. And they hand count, I think it was 51 million ballots, the majority of which they did within 6 hours.
It's not that hard counting. If you have enough people.
Yeah. I mean, and that's the thing. It's just like, you want to get people involved. You want to have people to have that conversation without fear of being labeled. But we've made it this we've added this stigmatization of not talking about it because of what happened in the American elections and stuff. And so you just get labeled, and so people don't want to talk about elections in a good faith manner. And I find that to be rather unfortunate.
Yeah, I guess it's a bit of a taboo.
Yeah.
Remanded. I guess I don't know how long we've been talking because my StreamYard is glitched. I think we passed the 1 hour mark.
Yeah.
Do you have any final comment? I thought, unless you want to leave it at that, those were pretty good final comments.
Yeah, no, that's pretty good. I mean, there's always more to go into, but yeah, no, that's pretty good. I mean, I've noticed I've got to use select words when I post things on X. I mean, everyone complains about the algorithm, but when you can actually feel the algorithm work against you, like some of my posts have like, 8,000 views, but there's only like 15 likes. And then you look at your metrics, and only like 5 to 10% of your following see or likes your post. It's you just kind of wonder what the hell is going on.
Man, I gave up. I don't know if you guys have noticed. I don't even use X anymore. Like, I write a post, I go out, I come back, it's got like 64 views. Like, what the hell's going on here, Elon?
Yeah. The thing is, like, you gotta leverage it. This is why having good relationships with people, regardless if you disagree with them or not, and just trying to be civil as possible, hope that people pick it up. and utilizing the Canadian communities. There's two. There was a bigger one, but it got shut down, unfortunately. But using the Canadian communities is a good avenue to get a couple more eyeballs on your stuff out there. I've used Substack because there was one person that reached out and gave me a recommendation through their following. So I think I have about 150 to 200 people or something on Substack, which is decent, but I don't get likes or reposts on there, which is very weird. But yeah, I did a post. If anybody hasn't seen it, I did a financial post or update for November 9th, and just laid out where all the funds and stuff have been used, and just so that nobody can claim this or that, um, you know with how things have been used or spent. So it's all there if people want to check it out. Um, yeah, I'll be updating people with our response to Elections BC, and hope that the commission gets back to us. And if anybody wants to donate through Give Send Go, that's an option. Yeah, I mean and that's
How do
yeah.
they donate on Give Send Go?
You can go to Give Send Go and just type in BC election, BC
All right.
space election, and I mean, I'm the only one there. No, nobody else cares about BC elections or the BC election. So it'll pop up there. People can read through it there, or you can just search my TheRemanded profile for BC election or BC election updates, and you'll see basically all the updates and what we've put out there. It's all there. The annoying part is that I think Hanvir Randhawa, who's got that Supreme Court case, the Supreme Court of BC court case in Surrey Guildford. I mean, he's spent about, I think he's got to be close to about 50 grand just in his endeavors. So that's why the limits of the Give Send Go are set to where they are, and that corresponds with legal counsel and whatever else. I don't really mind not taking things to court, because then it gives me an excuse, to just, I did everything, yada yada yada, live a more peaceful life, I guess, until the phase 2 of that committee starts. But it would be neat to put this to court, and it just unfortunately costs money, which is lame. It shouldn't, if it's not a frivolous request. But the biggest thing through that is we'll have unredacted discovery, and I think that's what they fear with these responses in the play for immunity. I still can't believe he's.
Well, for everyone in the audience, go ahead and give Remanded a follow on X. He is at TheRemanded, and if you can, go donate to his. Was it GoFundMe? Give Send Go.
Give Send Go. Yeah.
Go donate to his Give Send Go, and try to interact with him on X. He's an easygoing guy, and you might learn something about the Elections Act. So,
and it'll all be refunded. If we don't meet the mark, then I'll just let support Give Send Go refund everybody their money. So if there's just, because there'll be no reason to keep going forward with the campaign, because.
Well, I hope you reach your target, and thanks again for hopping on with me, Remanded.
Yeah, no problem. Okay.
Now
Thanks,
let's
everyone.
see if I can actually end the stream, or if it's going to go live again. All right. Well,
Cool.
I'll see you later, Amanda. I gotta figure out how to end the stream.
Okay.
All right. Take care.
All right. Later.
How the hell do you end the stream? Are we still recording? Watching all live sounds good. Yeah. Privacy Christians Act. That was beautiful. can click on go live, and then I guess I can click on end stream.